Wow, so today I'm really excited to be with Marine Tanguy. She's an advocate for artists since a very young age. Marine managed her first gallery at age 21 under Steve Lazarides, who discovered Banksy and JR and opened her first art gallery in Los Angeles at age 23. And she was lucky to be mentored by Michael Ovitz himself. After seeing the restrictiveness of the traditional gallery, Marine launched MTArt Agency in 2015 to build the reputations of the most incredible artists and to inspire everyone with their art. She felt that the art world was too traditional in the way it managed its talents, and that the visual sector, that is the urban realm, advertising sector, and digital world were poorly leveraged by visual artists, arts professionals. MTArt Agency was born. Fast forward to today, MTArt Agency is a certified B Corp award-winning talent agency worth 35 million and is the art sector's leading talent agency representing some of the most talented, forward-thinking artists in the world. I'm really excited to have you here, Marine. There was a slogan as well: "Don't invest in art, invest in artists," which I love. So anyway, thank you so much for being on the show.
That's also a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, Marine, like, how did this all start? I know kind of like from reading and knowing a little bit about you from online presence, how it started, but what was the moment that you knew you just had to create what you've been creating in your life?
Well, I think it's, like you said, CV wise, I was lucky to be given loads of really consistent experiences very young. And I think, I couldn't dream of being a gallery manager at 21. I could have dreamed to co-own a company at 23. So I think those opportunities actually came to me more than I created them. Obviously, I grabbed them, and I'm definitely someone that grabbed opportunities as a character. But therefore, they exposed me to the sector, to how you build a business in it, and ultimately, like, they made me think, why not creating exactly the idea I believe in, since I'm able to get those opportunities in the first place. So I'm very, very grateful for the early opportunities, therefore, whether it's my first boss, Steve Lazarides, or my first business partner, because I think that gives you a level of confidence that you can do it, therefore, and you can create that kind of businesses. Second thing, I'm very grateful, and I'm always saying, not that, because I know it defies the numbers where your average founder is much more likely to be 40 years old plus and actually much more successful at this age than super young. But I did love the fact that I was 25, just purely because, there was no relationship, no kids, no worries of heart for me, which sounds silly, but I felt I just took every single risk you could in the book. And I feel like as I'm growing older, I'm much more of a moderated, the way I evaluate risk has changed quite drastically. I'm not saying we don't take risk anymore, but it's very different. Like, I think in a sense, my core strength is much more to establish a business and actually risking everything every 2 seconds. So I did love my age as I started it. And at the time, it just felt like this was the right idea. This was the idea I comprehended. I comprehended why it could add value to the art world. I comprehended why it could add value to the artists, to the clients, to the partners. So I just felt they added value to everyone. I felt it was the right timing. And like I said, I was lucky to be 25 with that. I had really very little to lose.
Mm, yes, absolutely. And that's amazing. So at such a young age, did you always know that you were going to create a business and with artists?
I think business, definitely no. I think it's my personality is very, I love reading. I read all the time. My background, first of all, is much more one where philosophy and literature were quite heavy in terms of studies. And I love art, obviously, I love history of art. Um, I was definitely bold because, I got myself out of a tiny island off the west coast of France where there's 9,000 people who grew up there, and I'm one of them. So I think I was definitely able to take decisions and to be bold and take risk. I don't think I had imagined that I could build a business. I think ultimately those are worlds, whether it's economics or numbers or things that feel very intimidating, especially if you're from the literature and art side. And that's why I'm so grateful again for those early experiences, because they made me understood that, you know, I could sell well, I could do well with numbers, I could structure deals, and I was actually capable at it, which I don't think I would have imagined I was capable of it in the first place.
Yeah. And looking at, for example, sometimes in the 20s where other people might be going out and partying, you have already created a business at that stage. So that's amazing. What kind of, I guess, like, what was the mindset, or what was that drive or thing within you that made you really take on all these opportunities and create something from them at such an early age?
I think it's, you know, and I always, like I always say, I just never know where that comes from. But I was obsessed with having a family when I was, you know, 30 plus. Again, not saying you should have a family at 30, more saying that was always my dream. I had been a babysitter for so many years. I love kids. And I think as I started taking more and more risk business-wise, I was also trying to think, how can I get both? Because I know I would want both. And I think the only answer I got to was the fact that my 20s had to be the sacrifice. And it's not tragic. It's not like, you know, I don't hold a traumatized view of them. But like you said, you know, I didn't go out. I worked every single hour under the sun. I dealt with complicated situations and admin, or even, you know, structuring a business, and all things that are quite complex and also quite heavy in terms of pressure young. But for me, the goal was actually so that I could then later on have a balanced personal professional life. And again, I have no idea where that came from, that very strong desire that this had to be that way. Having been very extraordinarily lucky to have been able to have it both ways. You know, it's really nice. Like after our chat, I'll be able to be with my son. Like I've gone to a place where you know, I lead now a global business, but I also have a very strong personal life. And I think I don't know, I just had the instinct that this was right for me and this will make me happy. I was lucky again to meet someone 8 years ago, which is my husband now, who feels the same way. And who is as passionate about the company he has built. So I think it's, you know, with everything, there needs to be sacrifice at some point. There needs to be compromise at some point. I think at this level of our lives, there are still compromises because that's normal, but there's definitely no more sacrifices. And I wanted to be in a place that once I did get that family, I would not have to make sacrifices in the same way. So I think I probably ripped the plaster in the very hardcore sacrifices in the 20s, and then was fortunate enough that the business did well.
Yeah, definitely. And the business itself, like, it seems very much purposeful, like sharing art with the world. And there's art is not a luxury, but an essential, is what it says in your MTArt Agency site as well. And that's why you're so passionate about democratizing art, which is amazing. Tell me more about that. Where did that art come from?
Yeah, I mean, we've almost created a brand new vocabulary to look at this, actually. And it's finally, after many years, my book on this, which is on the visual sector and the visual world we live in, is coming out in January 2024 with Penguin, the editor. And so we're wrapping up everything, but the communication side is about to kick off on that. And it's relevant in that question because I think we have come up with a new vocabulary, a new way to look at things. And for me, I just feel I inhabit a visual world. I don't think I come in and out of the art world. I think every day can be, for all of us, a way to inhabit the visual world. And the visual world is, as you walk down the street, that's ultimately public art, like the ways artists could transform cities. As you consume digital, again, artists could be much more interacting at that. As you, in so many different ways. And so I think shifting the success of an artist, of course, still relevant within the art world itself, but also at a way wider angle through the visual sector, was one way in which we built a talent agency and established talents. But the second for sure is we've expanded the definition of what it means to do a partnership in the visual world. But again, it's one of those things where for me that was always obvious. This is something I felt was very logical. I actually felt the opposite wasn't logical. So I never had a sense of conflict. I never had to come up with whether or not that was the case. That was always feeling very logical, and the deeper I went in it, the deeper I analyzed it, the more it made sense. Now, of course, the challenge with being the first talent agency in the visual world, in the art world, is to express that to users and for people to understand that. And that's why I think the book also will help on the educational level of what does that mean to inhabit that visual world and to build visual talents and to consume all those visuals, and how we can all play a part in that.
Oh, amazing. When is the book coming out, or is it, did you say?
January 2024.
All right, so something to look forward to there.
Definitely, well, especially when you've been on the other side of writing it.
Right, yeah, of course. I can imagine. So like if you're supporting lots of artists, obviously, and what do you look for in an artist that you represent? What are some of those things that when you see an artist, you're like, wow, this is an artist I want to support? That's it. Oh, on mute all of a sudden, I can't hear you. Strange. Again, I don't know what's, let me see. Don't know what happened there. The sound broke down. Should I pause and then you come back in? Yeah. Okay, and I'll repeat the question. So when you look at an artist or you find your artist that you support, what do you look out for in an artist where you feel, okay, that's an inspirational artist who I would love to represent?
So we get lots of applications every month, many in fact. I think for us, how the artist goes about it technically, so how it adds value to what's existing already in the art world technically, conceptually, the narrative, the vision of it, but also how that person drives their vision, and ultimately the potential we can add to this artist as well. That's all things we'll be looking for. And yeah, and it's always a joy when you find it in someone.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And you have some amazing artists that you're supporting. And so you've been mentored by Michael Ovitz some time ago. I hope I share the name in the right way or pronounce it right. What was the biggest message or learning that in the time of being mentored that you took from him? I'm not sure what the recording, I can't hear it again. I don't know what it's about. It muted again. Strange. It happens all of a sudden. I'm so sorry for this. I don't know what's going on. Yes, sure. We can try another platform. Let's see. Okay, try logging in on your phone, because from the top of my head, I don't know which platform right now. I'll pause. And I'll repeat the question. So I was asking you about your mentorship with Michael Ovitz, and like, what was the message or the learning that you took from the mentorship with him?
I think what I've been super lucky overall is I have been lucky to be mentored by people like him who are enormous characters. You know, I think it's and I think someone might be intimidated. I think for me, the opposite, where it gave me so much confidence that someone that I felt had achieved so much business-wise would take the time of the day to speak to me and to pass on some lessons or advice or learning. So it's because I think if I think of it, that's really the main thing that it gives you. Of course, you know, like the way he collected great brains and got those brains together and packaged all of this is super inspiring, and has been directly applied to the business. But I think what the mentoring gives you is a much stronger confidence. It gives you the idea that, like, you know, that there are people that you truly respect professionally that ultimately believe in you. So you have a sense of responsibility, but also a sense of confidence that comes with it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And like, I guess, like, how might that have that confidence that you've created from the mentorship with them, how has that impacted how all the following years for you?
I think confidence is, you know, in a sense, it's I'm very lucky again that, like, all of this was so young and so early, because I could build up on top of it. No one ever wakes up thinking they're amazing, you know. Like, I think we all throughout the week do things that we're like, oh, we should have done that better, or wish I should have done that in a different way, and everything. And I'm still going through this like everybody else. But I think, but again, it's that sense of belief that, like, every single day I can put a foot in front of me and continue to lead and continue to build and continue to imagine the company as ambitiously as I would dream of. That, I think, is what that confidence gives you. They actually, that type of character are very quick to tell you when you're wrong. So this is not a reassuring, you know, it's not like going up to, like, I do Pilates and my instructor every 2 seconds tells me how great I'm doing. This is definitely not the type of people that will be like this to you. But they give you the sense that, again, they give you this advice for you to get better. So it's quite athletic in the sense. It's that idea that you should keep going, you should keep running, you should just keep improving. And it makes you stronger, it makes you more athletic, it makes you taking on challenges on that are even bigger challenges. So it puts in perspective your challenges. I'm surrounded by people who are, it's so extraordinary that, like, I remember a few days ago texting one of my friends, Yelda Hakim. She's a BBC reporter who has covered the Ukraine war, but also the Afghanistan war recently. Not war, sorry, the Afghanistan takeover of the Taliban, and therefore the way that they've been sadly repressing women. And, you know, her stressful week was that she was under house arrest with negotiations to get out. Like, so I think then when I speak to some of my business mentors, their stressful weeks are just so much more stressful than mine. And I think it's so nice to have perspective, because I think it puts you constantly realize that, one, it's not that bad, it's not that stressful, you can overcome it. And yeah, and that therefore it will just be fine. And I think with the network that I have, I just get reminded of this every day. And I think that gives you that extra confidence and that extra gratefulness. It's the life and what you're building is pretty nice.
Yes, yes. Was there ever a time for you where you felt that perhaps, because it sounds very much you're so connected to your intuition and also to a certain flow, that's that almost like where you really can trust yourself, like on every step of the way? Was there ever a time where you felt otherwise, I guess, in your life?
Yeah, I think, I mean, early 20s, mid 20s, it's like you're building everything up, I think, is the answer. So the foundations you are standing on are not foundations yet. There's no net. There's no one that can be here if something goes wrong. So of course, like, mentally, it's much less stable, and everything is heightened emotionally as well, because every disaster feels really grand and really big. Everything going wrong feels very big and very disastrous. So I think I'd gone through all of this in my early 20s, mid 20s. I think by the second I had foundations, I've never gone back. You know, there's definitely been loads of challenges that we've had to basically go over, but it's just, I've never been in a position where I felt the foundations were shaking again for the past at least 5 years. Because the truth is that the business is resilient, and it's and is, you know, despite many challenges, is standing, is growing, is scaling. The team is here, and a lot of my team now has been there for years, and, you know, quite a few of our artists have been here since the very right at the beginning. So same with same in my family home where it's the same relationship for 8 years. So like a lot of things have become stable. So in a sense, that stability makes the rest, you know, feel very little in comparison, and challenges feel very little. But until you have foundations, of course, you feel all of that. Everything is heightened. Everything is much more stressful. Everything is much more done to survival, and it's much less comfortable, I guess. But it's just, yeah, luckily I'm not in that period anymore.
So in the sense of creativity and everyone's unique and everyone has their unique creativity, you obviously have created a lot. And so what would you say from you, like what is your creative uniqueness, I would say, from your words?
Everything comes with pros and cons, weaknesses and strengths. I am not the exercise type. It's if you ask me for an exercise, I can't help but doing the exercise, but imagining loads of edges that are different around the exercise. My brain doesn't stick to a box or a list of to-dos or a list of exercises. France is very scholar, as we know, so like everyone has to kind of assess and go through very similar type of exams and ways to do things. So although from a marks perspective, I was fine at school, I think I've been also very fortunate that quite a lot of my professors, even when I was not exactly doing the exercise, but I was actually doing much more extra mile on top of the exercise, they could recognize that and still mark me decently and well. But I think, yes, creativity is obviously, I'm lucky to be born with it. But it does mean that therefore rules are definitely something that I don't comprehend very well, unless those rules are very logical. You know, there's a reason why they should be applied. Of course, more rules is different. You don't want to hurt someone. You don't want to upset someone. But I think when it comes to like society rules and, you know, like the art world saying an artist should not be doing a brand collaborations because it's not good for their career. Like as long as the rule is not fully explained to me and it doesn't sound logical, I have a brain that is not really going to integrate it very well. But that comes with an enormous amount of creativity. And I'm very lucky that I can make every minute, every hour of the day something really fun and creative, because my brain comes up with that really easily. And I think it's, as a parent as well, is something that, you know, it just, I can come home and come up with a couple of activities very quickly and then just goes off and do it. So that's definitely something that's really nice because it makes life really fun and enjoyable and very connected. Obviously the cons of that are always the fact that, like, yes, rules are not are feeling a bit more flexible for a brain that's like this.
What are some of those creative activities that you do, either yourself or with your kids, for example, that you shared?
Yeah, I mean, literally so many. So like an example is I've never been able to follow a recipe cooking wise, but I love cooking. So it's so even baking, and you know, my husband always thinks it's mad that I'm just weighting everything like from a experience perspective and not a rule book perspective. But so we do cooking, I cycle back and forth to school with my son Atlas every day. We'll stop by a different pastry shop every day or something cute that we find. And, you know, activities wise, every week is filled with activities from plays to different types of play dates, different types of explorations. Like I see the city a lot as a place where you can do so much and explore so much. I think it's the same for the team. I think from a company culture perspective, it's, you know, I came up with a company retreat in December where all of us went to a beautiful farm just off London with loads of activities. And I just found all of this really easy, like coming up with something that is really nice for someone doesn't take me that long either. You know, it's a whole, I think the creative brain like this is endless. You just constantly have ideas, so you just put them to actions. But I think when it comes to business, then that's how we've been able to have over 30 public art projects right now in central London. That's how we've been able to reimagine what it meant to project on the facade in the city and to integrate art in loads of different environments. So that creativity has been at the heart, which now many of my team has that creativity in themselves as well, is at the heart of the way we work with artists. But they manifest themselves every single 2 seconds. I think is the answer. And I'm just only realizing how lucky I am now to have it. I think it's the fact that it's so natural, and I never had to work for it.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. In terms of the most important ingredient you feel for creating and keeping and growing a business like you have, like what do you feel is the most important ingredient, and especially for the listeners as well, like what would be that?
Resilience, because there's times of highs, there's times of lows, and that's just basically the nature of the game. I think also very strong self-awareness. I think just being aware of what you're not good at, so that you can quickly recruit people who complement in this, and kind of being aware of therefore what's lacking in your strengths and how you can build that up. I mean, it's not obvious it's not a must for everyone. For me, being passionate about what I'm building is essential. I just couldn't be building a business if that wasn't. But I know a lot of people do. So I don't think that's a requirement, but I think for me that was one. And yeah, I think it's thinking short term and long term, and I think that's what's the hardest, where you're having to constantly switch your brain from I must do this right now up to this will make a big difference in the next few years, so must also do this. And so I think short term and long term is very key.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the artists, aspiring artists, what would be, especially looking at the art market and art world, art industry, I guess, with your experience, what would be a piece of advice for aspiring artists?
Well, I think it's the same, like just really trying to find something that you're super good and super unique at, stylistically, not trying to compare yourself to others. Concentrate on building. Comparison is the mother of evil, and I think it can be applied to anyone for that matter. I think concentrating on what makes that voice really yours is the biggest gift. But the second you've got this unique technique and concept, everyone is going to want to work with you. So just stop looking around. I mean, obviously, inspiration-wise, you can, but stop comparing yourself and just try to focus as much as you can on coming up with something that is very yours.
Yes. Very important. Well, thank you so much for everything and for coming on the show today. I want to ask you as well of like upcoming things and that you want to share with everyone, and anything else that's important right now that you would love to share, any events or shows or anything that's coming up.
There's definitely a lot, but I think therefore if you go to MTArt Agency and you go on our public art page, you'll see all the ongoing public art projects. We just launched a beautiful one, which is a visual poem of Robert Montgomery, our artist, in the middle of King's Cross here in London last week, which is really meaningful. We launched a party yesterday, which is a new partnership with Rosewood Hotel as well, which is really nice, and with the works of David Servan. So they're just scanning through the artist list on the website and seeing what they're up to, logging on Instagram on MTArt Agency on the Instagram as well. It's a nice way to keep in touch, but there should be enough to keep you inspired.
Yes, absolutely fantastic. And all of those links is under the podcast. Everyone can find everything you've just mentioned. And I want to thank you for today, Maureen. And thank you.